history buff. I will be talking today about the history of the Bill of Rights. Many people have heard of the Bill of Rights. It's something we generally know as important and having something to do with our rights and freedom. For most of human history, there was no thought given to the right of individual citizens. The king or other ruler often had complete power over the people. This began to change in the late Middle Ages. The nobles of England forced King John in 1215 to guarantee them certain rights. The document he signed was called the Magna Carta, or Great Charter. In this video, I'm going to talk about what a Bill of Rights is and why we have one, and why the Bill of Rights stands the test of time. First, let's start with the basics. What exactly is a Bill of Rights? A Bill of Rights is a written statement that explains the basic freedoms and rights of citizens. A Bill of Rights is sometimes called a Declaration of Rights or a Charter of Rights, and is a list of the most important rights to the citizens of a particular country. These amendments guarantee essential rights and civil liberties. Where can you find these powerful rights? In the United States, you can find them in the first 10 amendments of the Constitution, which are known as the Bill of Rights. Now that we know what a Bill of Rights is, let's talk about how the United States has a Bill of Rights and how it originated and who wrote this important document. Well, historians claim that at the Constitutional Convention in 1787, where the Constitution was drafted and ratified, George Mason, a delegate from Virginia, proposed adding a Bill of Rights, which would, he argued, give great quiet to the people and might be prepared in only a few hours. But the majority of the delegates voted to not include a Bill of Rights, and on September 17, 1787, 39 delegates signed the Constitution without adding a Bill of Rights. As it turned out, George Mason was right, because the U.S. Constitution of 1787 set up a government that was subject to majority rule. Many states wanted the Constitution amended to include more protection of civil liberties and individual rights. People wanted to protect their rights and limit government power. And thus, a call for a Bill of Rights to be drafted and included in the U.S. Constitution to safeguard our individuation liberties was heard. And since James Madison had already helped draft much of the Constitution, he took up the task of drafting a Bill of Rights, or amendments to the original U.S. Constitution. Madison largely borrowed information from the Virginia Declaration, though. It was written, and, in fact, it was written by George Mason, who gave everyone the idea of making a Bill of Rights. Interesting enough, the Virginia Declaration of Rights was actually written only 2 months before the Declaration of Independence in 1776. And you may not know this, but James Madison originally drafted 19 amendments, which he proposed to Congress on June 8, 1789, and the House of Representatives narrowed them down to 17. Then the Senate, with the approval of the House, narrowed them down to 12. These 12 amendments were approved on September 25, 1789, and sent to the states for ratification. So basically, the states had to approve the amendments before they could be added to the Constitution. Because really, you can't have a Constitution without everyone agreeing. Side note, ratification, or to ratify, simply means to sign or give formal consent, as in approving the Constitution. So when was the Bill of Rights given final consent? History buff? The 10 amendments that are now known as the Bill of Rights were ratified on December 15, 1791, and thus became part of the Constitution. The first 2 amendments, and the 12 that Congress proposed to the states, were rejected. But ironically, the original Second Amendment was finally added to the Constitution as the 27th Amendment more than 200 years later. The Founding Fathers really did have a way of understanding the needs of the future. The Bill of Rights was drafted in New York City, where the federal government was operating out of Federal Hall in 1789. The Declaration of Independence and the original unamended Constitution were written and signed in Philadelphia in Independence Hall. Now for the huge question, the one that's on everybody's mind. Why is the Bill of Rights so important, and why do we need it? The Bill of Rights represents the first step that we, the people, took in amending the Constitution in order to form a more perfect union. The original unamended Constitution was a remarkable achievement, establishing a revolutionary structure of government that put power in the hands of the people. And the Bill of Rights built on that foundation, protecting our most cherished American freedoms, including freedom of speech, religion, assembly, and due process of law. For more than 2 centuries, we have exercised, restricted, expanded, tested, and debated those freedoms. The Bill of Rights have shaped and been shaped by what makes us Americans. As we learned today, included our Bill of Rights. It is known as a living document because it can be amended, although in over 200 years, there have only been 17 amendments that have been added since. Here are the 10 Bill of Rights. Obviously, we all know that the Bill of Rights consists of 10 amendments that explicitly guarantee certain rights and protections to the U.S. citizens by limiting the power of the federal government. And here they are. The First Amendment prevents the government from interfering with the freedoms of speech, peaceable assembly, and exercise religion. The Second Amendment declares that properly constituted militias are a safeguard of liberty, and the right to bear arms will be protected. The Third Amendment restricts the quartering of soldiers in private homes. And that was so extremely, nobody wanted it so bad that it started. It was a main reason why the Revolutionary War started. The British soldiers, they kept barging in on our homes, on our American homes and American soil. And that's another reason why the Revolutionary War, which of course us Americans won. That's why it started. The Fourth Amendment protects citizens against unreasonable searches and seizures of private property. Hey, this is my house. Get out of here. The Fifth, Sixth, Seventh, and Eighth Amendments establish a variety of trial by jury, protection against self-incrimination, and double jeopardy. Being tried twice for the same offense, the right to due process, prohibition of cruel and unusual punishment, and the right to face one's accuser, obtain legal counsel, and be informed of all criminal charges. The Ninth Amendment, the second to last, acknowledges that the other 8 amendments aren't fake, and they aren't an exhaustive list of all rights and protections to which citizens are guaranteed. And the final amendment, the 10th Amendment, declares that any powers not explicitly delegated to the federal government in the Constitution are to be left to the states. This reinforced the principle of federalism, or separation of powers, by ensuring that the federal government could not usurp rights and powers that were not explicitly authorized in the Constitution. And here's a quote to end today. A Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government on earth, general or particular, and what no just government should refuse. That was a quote by Thomas Jefferson on December 20th, 1787. This has been the History Buff, talking about the Bill of Rights, one of the most historical artifacts in our American history. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye.